Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Michelle. I don't know why you keep grabbing us first. I mean, this is the third time I've been first with your issues forum, so they get better as the weeks go by. Anyway, thank you very much.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, never mind. Sorry. And I want to recognize the presence of Senator Kukish here in the audience today. And Albert, you're looking much better. And it's great to see you here. And Sally, she's his nurse right now. Albert had minor surgery, but he's doing very well. In fact, he told us this morning that right after session, he was coming in to do session, and then he was going to go straight home. So I guess the Paratrovich Hall is your home. And then he's going to go home. Jeez. As Kathy said, I'm going to talk about capital budget issues. Beth is going to talk about coastal zone and oil and gas, and then Kathy will talk about education. The governor presented his budget formally this week to the state senate, and it's roughly about $12.1 billion. That includes operation and capital budget spending. That's before the legislature makes any additions or deletions. Capital budget does include, and we're appreciative of the governor for recognizing Juneau, includes funding for important infrastructure projects here in the capital city. And in fact, I'm not going to touch on that, but he did, in his budget, submit a lot of infrastructure projects for all of the southeast region. So we're very appreciative of that. The legislature, as you know, can add money for more local projects. All the project requests are now submitted electronically, so we don't have to go through miles and miles of paper. Everything from different agencies, community organizations, issues that Kathy and Beth and I talk about, and discuss, and set priorities for our delegation are all now submitted electronically. However, we can't look right now until the deadline for submitting CAPSIS information, February 15th, until all those projects are submitted. Then we have the opportunity to go in and look at them. However, just as an example, last year, requests from communities or community organizations here in Juneau alone were $39 million. And we ended up doing, of course, a lot less than that because we don't have $39 million to dole out. But it's up to our delegation and through the Assembly and advice from the City and Borough of Juneau, and they have a separate priority list. But it's up to our delegation to then set priorities. And I think we're doing a fairly good job. It's very different in our city. We have two Democrats and a Republican, but we all work well together. In fact, we're the envy of some communities. Like we have legislators from Anchorage that I won't name come to us and says, "Well, why are you working together? You all have." I said, "Well, because we're all raised here, and our families have known each other forever." And the weird thing is we get along. Jim was my lands chair when I was mayor on the Assembly, and Kathy, last year, was finance director. So, we have a history of arguing amongst ourselves, but we keep it real clean in front of you guys. Going down some of the highlights of the budget for Juneau as proposed by the governor and some other issues that we're going to talk about. of course, the SLAM project, the State Library, Archives, and Museums project. It's slated in the governor's budget this year. The administration has recognized the significance of the State Library and Archives Museum project, and there is $20 million in the governor's budget now. Hopefully, we can get $1 or $2 more. That $20 million will get it over halfway. It's a huge project, but this will bring it up to over half of the funding dollars that this project needs. Then, of course, it's going to be right down the street. And the museum, the current State Museum, remember in 1967, was donated. That was our centennial project, and that was donated to the state of Alaska from the citizens of Juneau. Back then it was a city, not a city and borough. But so I don't know, did Douglas contribute? No, sorry. Speaking of Douglas, and and there's in fact a presentation that's going to be held again tonight. I think the Planning Commission is having the presentation tonight. The Assembly had a presentation, and I think, but anyway, there are going to be a lot of presentations on the State Library and Archives Museum project. $9.2 million in the governor's budget right now to refurbish the Douglas Island office building that currently houses Department of Fish and Game and Department of Corrections. And our entire delegation really pleased that the state is investing funds in refurbishing the Douglas Island complex. It keeps state employees close to the downtown core, and the neatest thing to me is it means there will be a state facility on the island, and I can guarantee you that the Island Pub and the Douglas Cafe are really happy that all those state employees will be staying in Douglas. And I used to work at that facility. It's just right behind the post office there on the channel side, and they built that for just a little over $1 million in the early 70s. I was in there a year after it opened, and in the middle of winter, takus would be blowing. You'd come into the office in the morning, there'd be snow inside because of anyway, it was a different type of construction, and they're going to completely redo it. $9.2 million. We have enhanced service for capital transit. That is in the budget through grants from the federal government and from the administration. A grant of $1.5 million to purchase 5 new buses, and they're all going to be handicap accessible. We're going to rewire the permanent fund building. Of course, they just went through a major construction project, replaced all the windows at the permanent fund building, insulated and did some really high-tech stuff that is supposed to make the building energy efficient. However, they need more bandwidth in the facility, and so we have $58 million to upgrade bandwidth connectivity in the wiring between the server rooms and all the workstations that those people up on top look at their computers and make us money, hopefully. And we applaud them. They're doing a whale of a job. Then we're doing a facelift for Aurora Harbor, $2 million, and that $2 million will replace the head float and will replace the larger floats, the big ones, float A and B. And hopefully we will get additional money for Aurora Harbor. We had a lot of money recently for Statter Harbor, and the situation out in Auk Bay with the DeHart's complex, and we do have funding for that. And in fact, that construction will be starting this summer. Then we're doing improvements to Glacier Highway in the Auk Bay business districts. In fact, it goes from like Sherwood Lane on out, but it's $10 million. It includes widening, adding a center turn lane, and improving bicycle and pedestrian access, and they're still working on maybe a roundabout. They haven't come to that decision yet, but the decision, if there was a roundabout constructed such as we have on the Douglas Island side of the bridge, would be there where the current DHARTS is located right in that facility, or right in that area. We have paving of $2 million for Mendenhall Valley roads, and that is part of the state's concern to control dust so we don't have to breathe it. We did a lot of this, but there still are some areas that need to be paved, so we have $2 million in that, and it may include, no final decision has been made as yet, but it'll include Blueberry Lane, G Street, Goat Hill Road, Power Street, Spring Way, Sasha Avenue, and Tongass Avenue. Then we have, finally, repaving Juneau Airport access. When you turn off the intersection going on Yandican by Fred Meyer at that intersection, the road is falling apart. And DOT is going to spend $1 million, hopefully this summer, because the project is ready. This upgrade will fill potholes, pave Yandican, Shell Simmons near the airport, and of course that's the primary artery to the airport if you don't want to go through the airport shopping area. Deferred maintenance is also high on our agenda, and we are very pleased that the administration agreed to support our efforts. Public Health Center, Juneau Public Health Center deferred maintenance, $104,000. This allocation includes painting the interior of the facility, and they're going to replace the heat pump's retaining wall and do some more geotech drilling to make the heat pump system that they have now more energy efficient, even more energy efficient. Johnson Youth Center has another $415,000 for deferred maintenance. The facility is going to see new flooring and interior painting. This is on top of the already allocated $10 million for the Johnson Youth Center, and that construction starts this spring. It's a huge remodel and new construction at the Johnson Youth Center. Juneau Pioneer Home, deferred maintenance, $415,000, and the Juneau Pioneer Home is going to see entirely new flooring, entirely new windows, which doesn't have a heck of a lot to do with flooring, but 249 windows are going to have to be replaced at the Juneau Pioneer Home because they're trying to make the facility much more energy efficient. And they're also going to do some more user-friendly projects like making access easier to residents of the facility so they can enjoy the grounds at the Juneau Pioneer Home more. Juneau's Gamble Spurl Armory is getting $514,000 in deferred maintenance. And we know that it's a brand new facility, but these funds are going to be utilized for upgrading security card readers. Remember, it's a joint use. University and the National Guard use Gamble Spurl. And so with the security issues, a lot of that is going to have to be replaced. Security card readers and an entire upgrade to the weapons storage vault. Then at Lemon Creek Correctional Center, more deferred maintenance, $319,200, and that includes a new boiler and renovation of the control system and redoing all security doors at that facility. Then improvements to the state office building parking garage, one right next door, $2.5 million, and that's going to rehab the state office building's parking garage. And of course, that parking garage facility is 4 decades old. However, the construction of the new parking garage will allow offices on top of the garage. They're making it more efficient, and it would be up to new earthquake standards of the federal government. And hopefully soon we'll see a new office structure on top of the new parking facility. And then we have other public parking, $6 million for renewal and repairs of the existing state office building, the Alaska office building, and the Diamond Courthouse. They're repairs that have been needed forever, and $6 million will help rehabilitate those facilities and continue their or extend their life expectancy. Then, of course, the governor's mansion is back on the thing again, and they need $500,000 for the governor's mansion and the archives building over the current archives facility. And the governor's house will have its fencing, curbs, and all its wooden fence is going to be replaced by a wrought iron. And then the archives building, a little more work on the roof so it won't leak anymore. And the archives building will have its chiller replaced. Whatever that is, but it's connected to the SOB now, but now they're going to separate it. And the archives building, you have to ask an architect, will have their chiller replaced. Also, before I get to these guys, budget also includes funding for important energy and ferry-related projects that directly benefit Juneau. $25 million allocated to the state's Renewable Energy Grant Fund, of which we all participate. $51.5 million for Alaska Housing Finance's Popular Home Energy Rebate and Weatherization Program, and $9 million toward buying and refurbishing the Prince Rupert Ferry Terminal, and then an additional $60 million in the budget again for an Alaska-class ferry, and that brings the total cost for funding for an Alaska-class ferry up to $125 million. It's going to be a beautiful new ferry, and I was talking to Albert, we were thinking, well, why don't they just use the design of the Malaspina? That thing seems to be working pretty well. You know, not like, never mind. That was a joke. So those are the capital projects that we're working on right now. Of course, the city has a lot of projects that we're also striving to get funding for, including the snow removal equipment facility, and the big issue is Juneau schools. Are you next? That's what oh, I'm sorry. Now Minority Leader Beth Bertula.